let's start at the beginning. What is your political experience so far?
Hi, good morning. So I have been a councillor for, I guess, nearly 8 years. I started out as a councillor in Lambeth, just across Clapham Common, in Clapham Common ward where I lived at the time. And then in between the elections, I moved across the Common, and I now represent Northcote ward in Battersea. And I've sort of been a member of Wandsworth Council then for the last 3 and a bit years, representing Northcote. So that's my experience as a councillor. I currently am the chair of our Finances, Resources and Climate Change Committee, which is great. And actually I take the lead in our Environment and Sustainability Strategy in Wandsworth, or the WES. And as well, I'll be taking a lead on smart growth, which is the plan that we're looking at, which will be put in place to see how we can start to build back better, as the phrase goes, following on from the COVID crisis. So those are my 2 kind of key areas of responsibility at the moment within the council, which is nice, as I think they sit very nicely within my areas of interest. And so I think I'm quite lucky to have those.
Fantastic. So what has been your high point or your biggest success in politics so far?
So I think there's always a part of me that remembers probably, the first piece of casework I ever did. And that was a housing piece of casework. And I was, very new at being a councillor at the time. And I suppose that stays with me because it illustrated to me just the difference that you could make to someone's life by doing what we do. So it was a woman who had been on the housing list for a while, and during that time had another baby, and her husband had to give up work due to ill health, and they were living in temporary accommodation and really needed just some help really in getting to where they needed to be able to be allocated the right accommodation for them. And I think it was definitely one of those things where I learned so much about what it was to be a local councillor, how to navigate local government. So while that might not be sort of a huge, sexy thing that I've achieved, I nonetheless, it always stays with me, I think, is one of the things I'm most proud of, because it happened, as I say, it was sort of almost my first piece of casework. So it's something that I always look back on.
Absolutely. So conversely, and this is a bit of a mean one, I'm afraid, what has been your biggest failure in politics so far? Or if we want to look at it nicely, what's been your biggest learning point in politics so far?
I think probably, again, when I was at Lambeth, so there were 3 Conservative councillors while I was there. I was one of 3 as the official opposition, and there are sort of around 60 councillors per London Authority. So we were very outnumbered. And we put together an alternative budget. We used to do it every year, and I think the first one I think was a real learning curve for me, because it takes quite a lot of time and effort to put together a big alternative budget for a local authority, especially between 3 of you, and trying to get it all signed off by officers to make sure that actually what we were proposing wasn't completely ridiculous, and that actually it would stand up under scrutiny. So we put a lot of time and effort into that, and then of course it's voted down because there were 3 of us, and that's how local democracy works. And so for me, I think it was a big learning curve for me, because I thought that despite sort of putting forward some ideas that I had really hoped were non-party political, they were still nonetheless, I think, not taken into account, because sometimes that is how party politics works, and people wanted to put forward the plan that they had come up with themselves. So for me, I think it was a lesson and a learning curve for me in always wanting to make sure that I felt like I was taking in the best of the ideas wherever they came from. As having sort of worked really hard to put forward something that was dismissed, I now think actually I'm going to try as much as I can in my political life not to do that, and listen to good ideas wherever they might come from.
Fantastic. So why should voters vote for you?
I think, well, I hope people vote for me, I guess for 3 main reasons. First one is I'm passionate. So my mum grew up in Merton and my dad grew up in Wandsworth. So for me, the area has a lot of personal connection, a lot of history. My dad literally grew up down the road from where I live now. So I feel as though I have a real connection to the area, and I've lived here for many, many years now. And as well, kind of representing as a local councillor, I feel as though I'm part of the community. I do feel as though I have the expertise to do the job. So I'm an expert in health policy, and it's something I would really want to bring to the role. It makes me think a lot about prevention, really, as a part of politics. So how can we work more at the front end of our public services to ensure that people never quite hit the crisis points that we sometimes see, and that get, I think, perhaps quite a lot of the resource and the time, whereas actually for me, I think it would be good to work more at the front end. So for me, that really kind of dictates how I shape my policies and my thinking and what I'd like to do as an assembly member. So yeah, the passion, hopefully the skill, and also because I would like, as I said earlier, to really be a listening representative. So someone who listens to our local businesses, to our local residents, and really is then a strong voice and a strong advocate for them at City Hall.
Fantastic. And then just finally, what is a light fact that voters may not know about you?
A light fact. Well, just before lockdown last year, I got my very first tattoo at the grand old age of 33. So I can show it to you if you'd like it to be.
Fantastic, yeah. Oh,
there you go.
That's really cool.
Online at riversideradio.com on your smart speaker.
Play Riverside Radio.
And now on DAB Digital Radio.